be presenting on the topic Rapid Proliferation of University in Nigeria, a curse or a blessing or a curse. Next slide, please. So I started off with some definition. I mean, I put in the definition of a university just to, it's a dictionary definition of a university to show that a university is an example of a higher level education, and that there are other institutions that also provide higher level education. And I mean, I put in some examples in there, like polytechnics. We have polytechnics in Nigeria. We have private universities and College of Education, and there are also other non-classical universities that we also have, such as the Defense College. We have a Police Academy and some vocational colleges. Next slide, please. So here we have a brief history of how university started in Nigeria. Before independence, we had just two. Or will I say in the 1930s, we had just Yaba Higher College, and this was established by a British colonial administrator, E.R.J. Hussey. So he had the idea that it would be beneficial for the British anyway to provide some sort of post-secondary school education for Nigerians. So then he came up with this idea, and then he started out of King's College, which was a very tiny unit of, it was a tiny unit that provided some sort of post-secondary education on special medicine. And then from there, they moved to Yaba. It became Yaba Higher College. But there were so many issues with Yaba Higher College, being that as at that time, we had few Nigerians that were educated, and, you know, it looked mediocre to them because Yaba Higher College was not a university in a true sense. It was just a college to train people to be administrative staffs. Like, for example, clerical workers. It was for vocational training, to train people, to train Nigerians or Africans in general, not necessarily Nigerians, because it wasn't developed with Nigerians in mind. It was developed for West Africa, a British West Africa. So it was to train people in administrative roles, and most especially in to become teachers to primary schools and secondary schools that were already existing in Nigeria then. And then Nigerians, the few Nigerians that were educated, they didn't like the idea, and there were so many issues with Yaba Higher College, such as limited capacity and so few courses. So with that, it led to the Elliott Commission being formed. And again, the Elliott Commission wasn't really for Nigerians. Again, it was for promoting a British West African country, or like a British West African nation. So due to the Elliott Commission, University College Ibadan was created. And University College Ibadan, as at then, was an affiliate of University of London. Say, for example, London University having part of its school, sort of like a broken part in Nigeria, wasn't really a true university in the sense also. And because of this also, there were so many issues with University College Ibadan, majorly because it wasn't really for Africans, and it wasn't taking care of our needs, and there were really so many issues. One that stands out for me is the fact that up until the 1950s, there were just 6 African employed in University College Ibadan, as opposed to so many other people that were employed to teach Africans in Nigeria. So in 1959, the Ashby Commission was set up. This was the first true commission that was set up for Nigerians to take care of the needs of higher level education in Nigeria. And the Ashby Commission, they really did a good job. They provided a comprehensive report that looked at the needs of Nigeria in terms of manpower, the secondary education, technical parts. They looked at everything. It was very comprehensive, and they also did a study of what we needed as a country for over 20 years. And from then, when they gave the report in 1960, the report in 1960 led to the development of present-day Nigerian universities, and also then Nigeria Nigeria fought for independence, and she was already an independent country. Next slide, please. Now, my reason for giving this brief history is not to sort of like give an excuse to the shortcomings that we have in terms of the way our educational system is in Nigeria. Is just to let us have just to remind those that know, and make us better appreciate the journey, and to understand, to appreciate the journey and also the achievements we've made as a country. In 2020 rather, Nigeria had already developed to the extent that we now have so many federal universities. You can see the data there. 49 federal universities, 59 states, and about 101 private universities. We also have so many colleges of education and College of Health Education as well. And according to Punch newspaper, there are no less than 63 budgets for the creation of new universities and polytechnics, and also College of Education tabled before the Senate and House of Reps. And that was at the beginning of 2020. Next slide, please. I mean, we would sort of appreciate that there was at the beginning, there was this clamor for creating universities for the good of the country. Nigerians wanted the education. We wanted higher level education because we wanted people were able to go out to the country and then see how it's been done in other places, and would understand the desire to be able to give our own its citizens good education in terms of higher level education, and not just the mediocre vocational studies and being clerical staffs and all that. So we can see from there that yes, there was this desire to create more. But now the question is, the way we keep creating more universities and creating more higher level education, in terms of polytechnics and colleges of education, is it a blessing or a curse? Judging with our current situation and everything that is going on in Nigeria currently. So before we decide whether it's a blessing or a curse, I think it's beneficial we look at some of the reasons that the politicians and people that want to establish more universities, the reason that they give for wanting more. And a few of them are just, they say the current universities we have, they have low carrying capacity, that it's not able to cater for the current population of Nigeria and maybe future population. And also, if we create more universities, obviously there will be more jobs for people out there, and with the high level of unemployment, it's an advantage. Also, state governments would claim that federal universities do not really cover indigenous needs of individual states. I mean, it's also a valid statement, but then what's the measure? What do they use in measuring that? What are the statistics or sort of yardstick we can use to say that's what is really going on? And also, there's this pursuance of creating educational balance among various states. For example, people in the north, they have a large number, or let's say people in the north will not want people in the west or the east to outdo them in terms of universities. They want their indigenous people to be able to have access to universities, and also have enough universities and education to also boast about. Next slide, please. So here I put together, I collected some information about the ranking of Nigerian universities internationally. And the reason why I did this is that when students internationally, that's now they're looking at it globally, not just in Nigeria. When students look at what universities do I want to attend, they look at the rankings of universities, and then they decide where they want to go. Then there are so many rankings. If you go on Google, you see different type of organizations that rank universities, but then the three best, or the ones that are like the three that would I say that the best out of all of them are the ARU, the QS system, and the CHE system. So according to the ARU, in 2022, UI ranked between 800 to 900 band. And they were the only Nigerian university that was on the list. And then The question now is that some people will say, is ARU the best among the three? Well, I wouldn't say it's the best. Some people would argue it's the best. People have different opinions, and that's because these organizations, they rank based on different criteria and methods. For like the ARU, the ARU rank based on the ARU ranking is based on the consistency in producing high quality research. And QS identifies universities that are regarded highly by companies, and then the graduates are well paid after graduation. They are well paid. The THE is based on research impact and reputation. For Nigerian universities, the QS system doesn't rank any Nigerian university. And I don't know, for me, it's a bit surprising, but I don't know what others think about it. But again, if you look at it in true sense, it shouldn't be really surprising. But the QS doesn't rank any Nigerian university. The THE, the ranking for UI and Unilag is they fall in the same band. Covenant is the only private university that sort of it's sort of like high on the list. Like, I mean, they made the list in terms of the research and the impact and the reputation globally. And then we have Bayero and Futa, and then they come before UNN, OAU, Uniben, and Unilorin. Next slide, please. So for me, I would say that Nigerian universities are doing good. I mean, I was impressed to see. I mean, we all know that UI has always been on the list, and they've sort of in a way stayed on the list. That means it shows that they are doing something right. And then we still have, even though we are not ranked by the QS, we are still ranked by the THE. So it's something. It's not totally bad. On this slide, we were talking about the current challenges that Nigerian universities face. We all know that there are so many challenges we face in Nigeria as a country in terms of political, economy, and labor market, and so many other areas. But I just put a few of them together just to show us our current, just to remind us, not show us, sorry, to remind us of our current challenges, such as weak leadership and academic corruption. In terms of wanting to push political agendas, most of the universities that are being created, they're not really because they need them, or it's not because they've done any research or studies to say that this community or this state or this area really needs a university. Most of them are just political agendas. And we know how things are run in Nigeria. I mean, one party comes in, maybe they feel that if they promise the people a university or polytechnic or something, it will boost their chances of ruling for a certain time or next term. And then we are aware that the research culture in Nigeria is very, very poor. I mean, aside from the research we do in school, there is really no research done by the Ministry of Education, rather, to say that there's a need for a university in the state, there's a need for a polytechnic. Do we have enough, or do we have, what's the input of students, what's the output, and all that? There's really no research done anywhere. There's no data collection. So that is a really big challenge in terms of university and in terms of university input and output, I would say. And then we have the issue of insecurity. The insecurity in the north, there's high rate of kidnap. There's high rate of kidnap. People are scared to travel and things like that. It really has an impact of somebody, say for example, someone that lives in the north wanting to go to school in the east, or someone that lives in the east and says, oh, I want to go to the west to study. Having to travel, your life matters. If you don't feel secure, then you saying you want to go to university or travel somewhere to go and study, the chance will become slim. And then there's inadequate funding and infrastructural facilities. We are all aware of this. And some universities, I mean, you go there and then some departments are so lacking. And I mean, some departments are not even, they're close to, they don't function the way they should be functioning. You don't have enough lecturers or teachers or lecturers rather to coach and help students or teach students that are interested in that course or want to study something in the department. And then you have infrastructural facilities for giving lectures. I mean, the world has gone global. Things are changing. People don't really do the pen and paper jotting notes. Most people are just they have one device or the other that they work with. And, everything, this is 21st century. Everything is moving fast. We have to be able to catch up and move with time, unless we'll be left behind. And we have high poverty rates, which in itself is self-explanatory. Everything is so expensive. And if everything is expensive, people are struggling to feed. I mean, we in a way would say we've gotten people interested in education. People are more sensitized to be wanting to be educated, and they've seen the benefit. But then you have the challenge of poverty. If people can't feed, even if they would want to go to school, it will really be a big challenge. I mean, even the ones that make it, what is the chance that when they go to university, they would be able to push through and come out, depending on whatever course they do this. Next slide, please. And these challenges continued. We have inadequate lecturers, poor staff development, what is being put into sort of bringing the lecturers up to date. Like, do they go for training? In those days, you used to hear people go for training, but these days it's just like nobody cares. I mean, even the lecturers that are there, most of them they're just there because probably some of them don't have a choice. I mean, I might be very wrong there. It might be some people's passion, but some people are just there because they don't really have an option, which is not supposed to be so. If you are a lecturer, you're a teacher, you're supposed to be there because you have the passion and you really want to impact on people. And then you have the infamous ASU strike, you have the NAFU strike, and you have in some universities, you have SCG strikes, and then numerous public holidays. And we have brain drain, both old and young population. Everybody's just moving out. If you have so many people going out of the country, it's going to be, I mean, especially the young population, it's going to really have an impact on our educational system, because if everybody leaves, who is going to join the next set of people? Who is going to handle our universities? Are we going to go back to the ways of bringing in expatriates or bringing in foreigners to come and teach in Nigerian universities? I mean, after having gone through all the struggle of getting an independence, building universities for ourselves, and then putting in Nigerians to run Nigerian universities. If people keep leaving, and we might maybe in the future end up going back to that way just to support our country, which would be very bad. And then we have pandemics and epidemics. COVID happened. It's caused a lot of havoc everywhere in the world, but then it also, I mean, what are the plans for if something like that happens? What are the structured plans we have in place? Do we have any, even if we don't have plans yet, do we have any, are we working towards any plan to sort of like support us, the higher level educational system or the educational system in general, if in the future something like this happens again? Next slide, please. So here I put in answers because I know some people might have a different answer, that yes, we can keep creating more universities. It doesn't really mean as long as they can provide for the sort of like provide for themselves. And I mean, some people would say that there's really no harm in creating more universities. But for me, I would say if we look at it from a pragmatic view, Nigeria is not a failure in terms of higher level education, judging by our history and complex challenges, because we gained our independence in 1960, and 1960 was when we had our first university. And then by that 1962, we had 5 universities, and we are still making global ranking, even if it's just one university or a few universities, depending on if you would argue that you prefer the ARE or the QS system or THC system. It's not bad. Because if you want to compare yourself to universities like Harvard and Cambridge, they've been existing 300 years, 500 years. I mean, it takes a lot for us to get to that level. And even in Africa, we have the oldest university in Morocco. They're existing almost 1,000 years now. So, I mean, it's not bad for a country that is 63 years old, and so at the universities and higher level education, 63 years old, we are getting a few things right, if not many, at least a few. However, for me, I would say that creating more university might end up being a cost, because it looks like we have so many things on our plate, and it's not like the creation of universities is out of comes from a place of honesty and concern, or you have hard data and facts to support it, that people really need this. And even the ones that the universities we have, most of them are suffering. The lecturers, I mean, the lecturers that are there, for example, ASU goes on strike because they say government refused to pay them. So if you build more, you create more jobs for people, they will end up being part of ASU member, then go on more strikes. If you say the universities we have they have low carrying capacity, what's the evidence you have? For example, in the Vanguard newspaper, I think it's that Vanguard or Punch? I can't really remember exactly. I did read that JAM said that some universities cut down, they sort of manipulate or cut down the quotas that they take for students. Like when students write exams, if they're supposed to take, if say for example, OAU is supposed to take 2,000. I'm not saying OAU now, I'm just saying it was reported by JAM that some universities cut down on the students they take, which is not supposed to be so. So if you say universities have low ranking, what's your evidence? Some of these universities were, especially the first generation universities, were built to take large number of students. Even, okay, let's say the population in 1980, it's different from what we have in 2002, but at least it shouldn't be so bad that you would say, for example, 2,000 students are writing JAM, and then you can take only 500, judging from all the universities and polytechnics and college of education we have. And even if people are yes, I agree, people want to aim for for a higher level, for a higher standard, so they would rather go to a university than go to a polytechnic. But then what is the evidence you have to show for this? Next slide, please. So, like I said, some people might have a different answer from, they might say it's a blessing, but for me, I say it's a curse. And so if you decide that it's a blessing, there are some arguments you have to provide answers for. And I mean, I've already mentioned some of them. Like, you have to tell us, has there been any substantial progress in the overall quality of educational system in the last 2 decades? Okay, after the Ashby Commission did their report, and then they did the report, it was so good that it was enough for 20 years. After the 20 years, do we have any other reports or any other body that's been set up to do something similar, or not even similar this time, because the world has moved on? Do we have any other reports for that it's better than that one, that is looking at the current situation of Nigeria and how we can help and make it better? And then our Ministry of Education, it's one of the oldest ministries in Nigeria. Basically, everything we have been saying, that's the function of the Ministry of Education: the data collection, the looking at labor markets, taking in of students, the control of JAMB, and transparency in the education, transparency and quality in the educational system in Nigeria. That's the whole function of the Ministry of Education. But it just looks like they just like to keep forming. They form one parastatal, the other is TED Fund, basic education, and those things keep taking money, and you don't really see what they do. I mean, for me, I can't really say this is what those TED Fund or basic or they have so many things that they come up with like that. What do they really do? Are you just building, are you just constructing a building and that, or are you actually ensuring that the educational system of Nigeria is of good quality? Then if you look at our economic capabilities, like I said earlier, we're sort of new to the game. I mean, I wouldn't say we are new. Like, it's not to provide an excuse. It's just to look at where we've our journey. like in the higher educational system, and compare it with other areas like globally. What is our economic capabilities? During the oil boom, like when Nigeria discovered oil, and when Nigeria was still booming, that's why I said the oil boom. That's when we had most of this good. Sorry, I won't use the word good, but that's when we had our UI. That's when we had OAU and Uniben and UNN. So, and then you could feel that yes, the economic situation of Nigeria was it was good. People would tell you life was a bit good then, and some of the worries that people have now, they didn't have it then. You would hear some people say, I mean, they were in universities and they got recruited by companies such as Shell, NNPC, and all of that. Nowadays, young guys come out from school, in fact, most people, they graduate with first class. The problem is not having a first class now, is like after university, what happened? So the economic situation of Nigeria is really struggling. So we have to look at our economic capabilities. If you say we should create more, can we handle it? Because the ones on ground, we haven't really done much with it. Then I've mentioned how we measure input and outputs. Do we look at our labor market? Is there any censorship? There's no research, there's no data collection, feedback from anywhere or anything like that. I don't know if other people have experienced it, but I know here in the UK, when you graduate from a university, as an alumni, they send you messages. They ask you, have you gotten a job? They ask you things like how was getting a job, and all those things that they collect. I'm aware that some of them is for the QS, like the one I saw recently, they were using it for the QS ranking. So they get in touch with their alumni and ask these questions. But I don't think we have anything like that in Nigeria. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe some private universities have them, but I don't think we have that for federal universities, which shouldn't be so, because I mean, we are not doing so bad. We have people that graduated from UI, all these good universities from Nigeria, and they're really good, doing good all around the world. They are doing things, I mean, good things and important things. So we should have a way of collecting data, storing information, and doing research and all that for our educational system, because that's the only way we can judge where we are coming from, where we are, and we can make plans on where we want to go. And then, are people giving back to the country? I put this in here because, just like I said before, massive brain drain. If you have people that are studying in Nigeria, I mean, going to invest in Nigeria or any higher level education in Nigeria is cheap. You could say it's free if you compare it to other places. Say, for example, you want to come to school in the UK or the US anyway, you know how much they pay for their universities. So if the government or if Nigeria is spending so much on training people in universities, in higher level educations, polytechnics, College of Health, College of Education, College of Health, and then you have the same people leaving the country, like not even one or two, like you have people just shipping out of the country. At the end of the day, who's going to lecture the people that are coming? Who is going to provide education for them, and so many other things. So there should be a system put in place to help Nigeria to make people give back to the country, because that's the only way that's going to help the labor market, going to help the economy, and in return is going to help the educational system. So it's sort of like a circle that has to be balanced. I mean, it might not be perfect, but then there should be some sort of balance. Next slide, please. So I put in some solutions, and we've mentioned most of them, such as the change in policies. Our educational system should be made less political, and there should be limitations to duration of strike, and we should have a stable calendar that even though you want to go on strike, I mean, there should be some stability to the calendar that you can't go beyond a certain number of days. I don't know how that is going to work, but then that's what politics is for. And Federal Ministry of Education should work with you should work with politicians, or rather the people that make the policies, to put these things in place, because it's only institutions such as the Federal Ministry that can help, that can make these things work, like that can make limiting sort of like stabilizing calendar, if not even if they can't limit duration of strike, they can make it less political. They can help stabilize calendar. Then if can we give autonomy to the universities? I mean, so sort of like to facilitate them in earning more money, so it won't just be depending on the government for everything. I mean, they can brainstorm on ways on how to increase their financial situation, make better their financial situation. I mean, you could say increase in school fees is a tricky one because of the high rate of poverty, but then in reality, you have to get something from somewhere. So they can look into increasing school fees in a reasonable way. They can look into mortgaging lands in universities, privatizing of university, or they can do sort of like a co-ownership. For example, Covenant University is doing well. They're really doing well, and they're a private university. So they are doing something where, I mean, privatization works. It's not totally bad. It might be very expensive, but then we can say it works. Then to fight institutional corruption, to provide transparency and accountability for our educational system. Suppressing insecurities, like I said, it's really, really important that even if we are known by the world or other countries, nobody really wants to come to a country where you get shot on the way, or I mean, you're going to buy something and the person gets kidnapped on the way. Nobody's going to go to that country. So you might just have the name. I mean, they might know you globally, but what good does it do? What good will it do you if there's high rate of insecurity? So I highlighted insecurities because if you don't take care of it, I mean, you can just say bye-bye to the global recognition, or just say bye to the global recognition. So the last one I said, promotes lucrative market. So the reason why I put it here is that in the first slide, if you remember in the first slide, I said university is not the only, like, it's just one of the institutions that provide higher level education. There are other non-classical ones and other institutions, but we have polytechnic. I mean, although university is the topmost, most people want a university, but then to be honest and fair, like, this is life. Everybody might not get to go to university, and some people don't even want to go to it. So why I promote lucrative markets is, this is 21st century, 2022. People are doing well in arts, in culinary skills. You have creative skills, and there's also vocational education. Like during the course of putting together this slide, I discovered that Nigeria has about over 100 vocational schools, of which most people don't even know about. These schools, they can teach you fashion design, they can teach you mechanics and all that. So I mean, if you look at it, not everybody is going to get rich by being a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer. I mean, these days, sometimes we even say those people are the people that get rich. If an aeronautic engineer builds a plane, he's not going to make the leather, he's not going to do the interior decor. You're going to call somebody that has those skills to actually do it for you. And even the equipment to use in the hospital, such as the scrubs, the machine, someone has to make them, and people make good money from them. So the Nigeria can also look into all this area. We are good in arts, we are good in culinary skills, we have so many creative skills. People are really, really good. So if the government can look into this and promote it, like really promote them, and provide funds and sort of like financial aids for these people, I mean, it will sort of like balance out the pressure you have on polytechnics and universities, and in the long run, it will do us good. Next slide, please. So those are my references. Thank you for listening. If you have please feel free to give your opinion if you feel that Nigeria should keep on creating more universities, and just you can give us your reason why.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the wonderful presentation. I think you've done justice to the topic given. You dissected it from head to toe, and you did show that you had a very good grasp of the topic in question. Yeah, so I think it's always something that people will argue back and forth regarding whether we need to create more universities. Some will say yes, some will say no. I think both sides are right, and at the same time, we can say both sides are wrong. I mean, it can be right or can be wrong at the same time. It depends on how we argue things. I, for one, yeah, I think there's a part when you mentioned that you think Nigerian universities are doing okay. I think I beg to differ at that with that point, because I don't think we are doing fine. If you look at the history, the trajectory, and all that, you actually notice that we are declining. Back in the 60s and 70s, Nigerian universities were ranked among the top 100, top 200 in the world. And we sort of have this exchange program with very good universities across the globe, in which people send their undergraduates to UI, they send their undergraduates to OAU, and etc. And OAU, UI, and others, and their cohorts, they also, in exchange, send some undergraduates to those schools. That shows the level of the kind of quality they had that time. I don't think any Harvard undergraduates will fancy going to UI or OAU at the minute. Yeah, you did mention a lot of things that could also be responsible for that: insecurity, poor funding, high poverty rates, lack of fiscal policies, and all that, which are all contributory in all honesty. So, are we doing well? I would say no. I think the answer is a bit easy, because obviously there's nothing we are getting right in the country at the moment. The country is declining. Everything is just going down south. It doesn't look like we are moving in the right direction. And it's manifesting almost everything that we do, manifesting our way of life, manifesting our politics, etc., etc. So, do we need the numbers of universities that we have? I would, yeah, for a population of 200 million plus, for one, I don't even think we know the exact number of people that are in Nigeria. So, yeah, it's not bad to have more than 100 universities. We currently have close to 300, as you've shown us, 216 and counting. I don't think having 100 or 150, it's a bad one, because even for a population of 60, 70 million in the UK, they have more than 100 universities. So I don't think the number is actually the problem. Where I've got problem is the quality, and the way we create those universities. Some of those universities the mission behind it is not actually academic. It's just more of, it's political. This is Osun State. Osun State have got headed, they've got Oshogbo, they've got Iragbiji or something like that. And all the politicians in those places, they also want to have universities in there, not basically to just enlighten the populace, but just to show that I brought this university to this place, so my people will recognize me for life, that I've done something for them. And that shows a lot in terms of the quality we do have, the kind of the output those universities do have, because the mission is wrong, the foundation is not appropriate, and it's not surprising that some of those things that we see, they are not of any quality. And you did mention those rankings. Agreed. Whichever one they use, I think we should still be representing. QS did not even mention any Nigerian university, because obviously none of our graduates are doing well. I don't think it's so difficult, if not for the tech guys that are trying to train and retrain themselves by involving themselves in data analysis and all that, and getting some just offshores. If you rely on Nigerian education, Nigerian university training, you probably won't be able to bag any job, outside the country. And that's why the likes of QS will not be able to rank us, because we are not doing well. Graduates are not doing well. You need to really train yourself, retrain yourself before you can become competitive. And that's why it's not surprising. In terms of research, where is the funding? As at 3-4 years ago, Harvard University contributes almost more than $5 billion, into research. That's almost like one quarter of Nigerian budget as a whole. So you can imagine just one institution. So the funding is poor, and the political will is not there. The politicians would rather spend money, give money to HINEC to conduct election, give money to thugs, to secure vote for them, than spend on education, because they don't actually value the education. And to prove my point further, we can see that a good number of them, they don't actually believe in that quality of education that we're having. How many Nigerian governors, how many Nigerian senators actually have their kids in Nigerian universities? Because they understand that the quality of education is really, really poor. Things have gone south, and things are not going in the right direction. So they wouldn't dare to put their own kids or their loved ones in those universities. So in all ramifications, we are not on the right track, and we need to get things right. And the reason is very obvious. The same reason why we're poor is the same reason why our university is poor. The reason why we're not getting things politically right, that's the same reason why our university is not getting things right. There's a lot of politics in there. For you to become a professor in Nigerian universities now, there are certain things that you need to do. There are some campus that you need to belong to before you could get recognized. So it's not really quality, it's not really what you do that determines how far you will go in those universities. It's about where you belong to, the caucus you belong to, and etc., etc. So it just shows how declining we are in terms of development, in terms of how we carry out our day-to-day activity. I think I would like to stop here and allow more contributions from other people. Once again, I think you've done very well. You've done a lot of justice to this presentation, and kudos and well done. Thank you. Do we have any other person that wants to contribute to this very important topic? Yeah, I can see Barrister Elias. Barrister Elias is in the library, so he won't be able to speak. Yeah, I attended Unilorin, so I'll read out his comments. We can also read it in his chat box. He said, I attended Unilorin and now comparing it with University of Aberdeen. He's a PhD student in University of Aberdeen here in Scotland, yeah, which is over 500 years. There's evidence for your assertion on how old and how well. However, as much as it is said that Rome was not built in a day, it was also not built in a million years. Also, many people looking at ranking usually check whether the uni they will attend is ranked 200 to 300 globally, regardless of which ranking to consider, whether QS or TH. I agree with him. If we cannot get any investing to that range, we will not attract serious stakeholders. So we must begin to think of how to improve the ones we've got as a matter of priority over creating new ones. So I agree with Barrister Elias. I think he has summarized my thoughts in terms of whether it's QS, whether it's THE, or whether it's ARW. It doesn't matter which one we should be representing, because they all shows strengths and all that, So if it's about job, if it's about research, then we should have universities competing, in all those zones. Not like we'll say, oh, ARW rank us, then here's no rank because we don't, with our graduates don't compete, they don't compete with the best brains. So that is it. So do we have another person that wants to contribute? Yeah, Ahmed. Ahmed. Is that Dr. Ahmed?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, you can have the floor, Surgeon.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah,
I particularly did the presenter for this wonderful presentation. So it was a great job done. I would like to make my comment and look at it the two ways. I believe having more universities has its advantage, and then it also has its own drawbacks, like it's eventually getting to be a cost because it's really not solving the fundamental problem. Generally, I think our education system, right from primary to secondary to tertiary, is really decaying. I would like to remind us all, I believe most of us attended private primary schools because the decay in public primary schools right from those days was obvious. Then eventually some of us got to public secondary schools, but now I tell you, no parent would like to take his or her award to a public secondary school at the moment because of the obvious case. Same thing is happening in our tertiary institutions. It's really getting bad. The time we left universities is just a few years back, and now things are really worse. ASU strike occurred during our time. It's the worst of it occurred recently. That even by the time they resumed, some lecturers have opted for a job abroad. Do we continue like this? So if this is the situation, I don't think creating more universities is going to solve these problems. We are going to add more burden or more decay to the system. Why is UI ranking high? Why is Covenant University ranking high? Now, these things can be replicated. They look at, okay, this is the yardstick for the ranking. Then they can be replicated in other universities and make it general standard. If the standard is good, believe me, people would opt to school in Nigeria. An average politician today would not opt to keep their kids in Nigeria because they know that the system is bad. But rather than looking into other things that the politicians are looking into, the Senate and all that, they don't really care much about the education system. Like you rightly said, Dr. Mbag, the issue of okay, my state, Osun State now should have their own university, my local government should have the university. All of these are just political. They are just political. It's just, okay, now we have a representative and eventually it fought for us to have our own university and this might bring development and all that, but they're all political. How much are these lecturers being paid? Are they really motivated? Are they really doing their job? Lecturers are not really doing their job as lecturers. They're supposed to be doing researches here and there, day and night, but these things are not being done. So I think the effort rather should be in order to improve the available ones rather than creating new ones. But then looking at it the other way around, creating more universities, I think in one way or the other, had led to some sort of better opportunities in certain courses. For example, recently, someone through me sought for admission in Kwara State University to study aeronautics. And then a lady, it had been her childhood passion and all that. And she eventually got it. But I believe if she was meant to opt for government public universities and she may not actually get it. I went all the way to Sokoto in order to study medicine. I knew I couldn't really get medicine in Ilorin. My colleagues then that even scored higher than me in JAM did not get medicine in Ilorin. I opted for Sokoto. So if there was no university in Sokoto State, I probably may not even study medicine. And if I can afford to study medicine in a private institution or maybe another state that has university that has medicine, I might get to study medicine. So in one way or the other, it tends to create opportunities for certain courses and then for some people who desire certain career in life to also have such to be accomplished. So this is the only way I look at it, that okay, maybe it has some advantage, but generally I think it's better they consolidate on the available ones rather than creating more rubbish to the cats. They're just adding more rubbish to the cat, and then what we have on ground is not really yielding much. So these are my submissions for now. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for the wonderful contribution. I think you've given very important points, and you've actually highlighted those things that we need to consider, whether for or against creating more universities. Like you rightly said, it's more political than any other thing. And the earlier we get our house right, the better. We need to actually look into doing things, for the benefits of the country, not necessarily for the benefit of ourselves, to promote our political image and all that. And that's what politicians knows how to do. But sometimes I do wonder, I'm not digressing, I'm sorry. I do wonder whether switching to democratic dispensation actually favors us, because you will notice it just looks like we're just moving around the circle without any progress. Okay, we've got 4 years tenure. Somebody comes in, he spends 6 months trying to figure out who will be his ministers. And after that 6 months, he rules the country for a year and a half. Then the next thing that happens is they will start talking about primaries. at the local level, at APC, PDP, what have you. And when the moment they finish that primary, they will start discussing the general election. So you will discover that the years that they actually use in ruling us is less than 2 years. I mean, in governance itself, it's just less than 2. Because I can remember the moment we got into like 2022, or even the later part of 2021, the likes of Tinubu, Osibanjo, etc., they all started, juggling for who will be the flag bearer of this party. Atiku has started the reconciliation meeting and all that. And it just keeps going, on and on and on and on like that. And you just wonder whether this kind of system actually suits us best, because this is now reflecting on our educational system. And that's where I'm coming from. I just want to highlight how important politics, the kind of importance, the kind of role, politics play on education and almost every other thing. We discussed health the other time too. So sometimes I just wonder whether we need to actually reflect on these things and decide to say we need a way forward. If it's going to be democratic, should we also be following 4 years? And if it's not 4 years, what is the way forward? Is it single tenure, etc., so that we could have stability in growing all sectors, especially the important one like education and health. Do we have any other person that wants to contribute? Dr. Aishat, I can see you here. Qasim, I can also see you here. Our very own Taiba Sharafadin, I can also see you here. Do we have another person that wants to contribute?
Well done. Well done. Hello. Well done, the presenter. I really appreciate the analysis and the presentation. It goes on well. Hello.
We can hear you.
All right. But the area I want to talk, when you are talking about how we can solve the problem, I believe I want to say the best way is to separate politics from our education, because the presenter has made mention of something. She said independence, autonomy of the universities. If the school has autonomy, at least they maintain their program on their own. They look for a way to source for fund on their own. So the only thing they collect from government is subvention. And that is, they pay their salary, not expecting the government to come and pay the salary of the workers. So there is nothing we can do. That is how democracy will keep going, either 4 years, 8 years, whatever it is. Once someone is in power, he will be dreaming on retaining the power until he has no way again. So, but if the schools, if they are independent, they can make decisions on their own. Now, for example, and I think they are really, because I just put in for, I've just been given admission in University of Folarin to do my master's, and I see the school fees has been increased even up to 100%. That's to show maybe they want to be generating money in order to provide for everything they need, so that they won't be waiting for the government to bring this, to do that. Because most of these foreign universities you have been mentioning that they have been doing well, if you look at them very well, those universities, they are independent and their program is dependent. So if we make universities to be independent, like autonomy, and we separate it from these politics of a thing that we are doing in Nigeria, if we cannot separate it, if the government, the universities depend on government to come and pay the salary, I don't think we can get out of this. So that's my own submission. I really appreciate it. And based on whether they should create more investors, creation of more investors cannot work again. Is what I would like is to maintain the one that have been created. They should make policies that we made the one created to function. That is what I will suggest. But creating more university, I think they can still not meet our need. The one we have is to upgrade them and optimize their use. So that's my submission. I really appreciate the presenter and the organizer of this seminar, and I've learned a lot, and I will also have it in mind. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for the wonderful contribution. You actually chip in an important point there in terms of autonomy. I think we've always had that word every now and then, university autonomy. I think 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that was something that was, that was like a focal discussion, a focal topic that everybody was mentioning. Oh, we need to be autonomous, we need to be this. Actually, the university something. They really fought for it that time. But like we said, to even pass some of those bills, do some of those through National Assembly is a lot. And even if they manage to pass some of those bills and say, okay, we want you to be autonomous, like the way we have local government stuff, in which Buhari signed an executive order and all that and say, okay, the local government needs to be autonomous and all that. And he started releasing money and all that. And he's putting pressure on the state to say, give these people their money without you coercing them to have a joint account with the state government. But they are still not autonomous. So those are the problems we have in Nigeria. The bottlenecks. When you try to strive for something and say, okay, let's have this. If you even manage to pass the bill and all that, implementation is another thing. And it's saddening, when you look at it and say, okay, which way are we now going? Because these are the things that should help. If universities are not autonomous, if they have to go to the federal level before they can do anything, how can they turn out good graduates? How can they invest in researches and all that? Of course, they won't be able to do, because they are at the mercy of politicians and all that. If politicians do not give money, there's nothing they can do. And if there is no transparency, most people, most stakeholders, most investors, they won't be able to even give grants and all that and promote research. And that's exactly what's happening, because there's no transparency, there's no autonomy and all that. And majority of those grants, they don't come in. And when those grants don't come in, there are no researches. If you can remember the popular COVID that time, when COVID came out, UCL, University College London, there was one, at Oxford, I think Oxford discovered Moderna, that particular vaccine, And if you look at it, those things are born out of money, a lot of billions of dollars, billions of pounds that were sent by this pharmaceutical company. It's not even the UK government that were spending that money, because everybody were hustling to say, okay, we must be the first that will discover this vaccine. We must be the first that will discover the vaccine. The moment you discover the vaccine, they know in terms of money, they know in terms of recognition what that is going to give them. So everybody were churning out money and saying, continue with this, we need this. They bombarded with money. And at the end of the day, within 3 to 4 months, they were able to come up with something, and that's it. From there, most countries were now announcing their own type of vaccines and all that. US also said they got this and all that. So that is the healthy competition we are talking about. But in Nigerian system, those somethings are not there. There is no transparency. Even if you want to bring in money, they can say professor is not around, you have to come back in 2 months and all that. So who has time for all those things? So there are no clear-cut ways of doing things, which is so saddening. So, Mr. Mustafa, we really appreciate your contribution. I think that's a very, very important point that you chip in there. I think our time is fast spent today. Let me see. Oh, okay, Mr. Our Dr. Aisha, she's unable to speak at the moment. She also brought in an important point by saying, I believe consolidating and standardizing the already established universities will be a blessing for ramification rather than creating new ones. We need to also work on global recognition. Very true, very true. She has buttressed virtually what we've been reiterating this night. I think on this note, Qasim, yeah, I can see your hand. You have the floor. I think you'll be the last person, then we'll just close. We'll give a closing remark, and that will be all for today. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. I want to appreciate the presenter for unshedding or unclad all the gray area on the topic of discourse. Sincerely speaking, it was such an informative and highly insightful. So I just want to add my voice to the topic of this discourse. Well, the argument has always been surrounding the word politics, politics, politics. In same climb, politics has always been the only factor that has been making a lot of development in both health, education, and in all the rest. But zero is the case of Nigeria. So sad about that. The argument of all our government regarding the proliferation of this university has always been we want to develop state. That one too is also a political view, which is so very bad. Gaining admission into university to do good course is also to politics, not just educational course. Good course, medicine, medical lab science, engineering is also politics. The lecturer that will be taking you in class also got the appointment to politics. All centers around politics, and it has not been working, and it is no more working compared to the way it was being in the past year. And from an economical point of view, most of our private institutions now, most of anyone that has money now, the only thing that comes to his mind is to build university or any tertiary institution. They now see that as a lucrative business. Meanwhile, it should have been better if they are doing it exceptionally. But I have seen 2 cases of maybe college of education like that all they do is that they just sit in their room, they have money, and let's found a university or this like that, and nothing exceptional, no consulting. All what they do is just to go to another institution, get their curriculum, the archaic curriculum that's supposed to be revised by the same university by the same institution. They left it. The new ones now collect it. They copy, they photocopy, and this and that. So why commissioning this university or this tertiary education? The NUC that will come, the NCE that will, all those boards that will come, if it is poly, if it is all, they will also induce them or incite them with money to take away eyes of the matter. So that one too, that's from an economical point of view. All this thing has not been working. Well, this same my argument now boils down to all what my argument boils down to what people always clamor for: the past of the education to be into to giving one a secure life. This and that has gone. I'm talking about the industrial era. Now is the technological era. So our educational system should be shifted from just the gaze of the industrial era to a technological era. And I am glad that most of the universities are doing wonder regarding that, especially in the entrepreneurship part of it, which is mostly unique or identified with Kwara State University and some other universities. So the educational system and the proliferation of this thing would have been the best if we change the narration from the industrial era to technological era. So that's my point of view regarding that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kasim, for the wonderful contribution. Yeah, you reiterate something that is very important that we are also mindful of, and we've always been discussing as a focal point, because we all know that without politics, there's no way we can reach the destination, and the destination is actually restructuring our university system in a way that they'll be able to deliver quality graduates. And I think that is one thing that some of the private universities have started channeling their energy on, and is yielding a tremendous result. If you look at the likes of Convenience University, I think in the next 10 to 15 years, some of those federal universities will not be able to challenge the graduates that those universities, the private universities, will be producing. And not because they are better, they have better brains than those that are going through public institution, but it's just because of the stability, the politics we are talking about. They'll be more stable, they have a better academic rota and all that, and they are more focused in terms of delivering quality education. And it won't be surprising that in the next couple of years, they will actually surpass the federal institution. I foresee the next 5-10 years, the Covenant to be number one in Nigeria, and even the federal institution might not even be very close to Covenant in terms of ranking and all that. And that will be a surprise to anyone that understands the kind of movement they've made in the last 10 years. So politics is very important. Our government needs to understand that education is paramount. It's the bedrock of everything, and there is no serious nation that actually jokes with their institution or education. We could see that the likes of Donald Trump did against science. We could see the results. Thousands of people died in the United States just because he was working against science. Fauci kept telling him that this is what we should do in terms of COVID, managing COVID and all that, but he didn't believe in science. He felt they were overblowing things. He opened the border when he wasn't supposed to open it. He was not paying caution to all those things, and thousands of lives, paid for that, which is very unfortunate. What I'm trying to say is that nobody toys with all those sectors. We don't talk with science. We don't toy with education. Once you do all that, then there is nothing that will end it than disaster. So politically, we need to get it right. I think once we can get our leadership right, then every other thing will follow. By and large, I think we've had a very good night, and I think a good number of us will agree with me that it's been a wonderful session tonight. I mean, it's not a disappointing one, just like every other one we've had in the past. On this note, I'll be saying thank you for all the members, the CEF member that have made it here today, and thank you all for your wonderful contribution. We do hope in the nearest future we catch up.